Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Chris Confessore. I am the music director of your Brevard Symphony Orchestra. I'm happy to welcome you to this online preview of our third and final summer evenings concert of the summer of 2021. We've had two beautiful concerts thus far on the series, which takes place at Suntree United Methodist Church in Viera. And we are excited about the third concert on the series coming up on Saturday, August 14th. It's at 7 p.m. and it features our wonderful concertmaster, Lisa Ferrigno. And we are excited to have Lisa joining us this evening to talk to us about this program. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you have put together a beautiful program. Now you have a collaborator on this program, and it is, tell us who is performing with you.
Scott Watkins, who is just my favorite pianist, honestly. When I envisioned some of these pieces that I'll be playing, he was the only person I imagined wanting to play them with. So I was able to ask him when he was performing his concerto with us this season. I asked him if he'd be interested in doing a recital, and he said yes, and I just was so excited and put this program together based on that.
Oh, that's great. Well, he's certainly one of my favorite artists as well, you know. So Lisa, in addition to being our concertmaster, Lisa is our most frequent guest artist. You see her appearing as a soloist with the orchestra very often. In fact, this coming season, in February of 2022, on our Pops concert in February, we pay tribute to John Williams. It's like a week before John Williams' 90th birthday. So Lisa's going to play the music, some of the music from Schindler's List. Really beautiful, haunting music. You've played some of that before, right?
Yes, yeah, but I'll be doing all three pieces on this program this year.
Three beautiful pieces, and they were written for Itzhak Perlman, and you know, the orchestration is so beautiful. So it's going to be great. So after Lisa, the next most frequent guest artist with the BSO is Scott Watkins. So these two are going to make a fantastic pair for this concert. So Lisa, you were our concertmaster, or you began as our concertmaster in January of 1999. It was a concert during our 45th anniversary season. We played The Planets, was the big piece on the program. And do you remember who our guest artist was for that concert?
Was it Scott?
It was. I had to look.
I was going to say.
It was. Yeah, so Scott Watkins was our soloist for that. He played the Rachmaninoff Rhapsody. So see, you guys have been making great music together for the BSO all these years. So you have put together a really wonderful program with lots of variety, but with a theme that runs through the program, even though there are all sorts of different, some familiar name composers and others maybe our listeners haven't heard about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the program?
So the first piece on the program sort of doesn't fit in the theme, except maybe my overall theme of Lisa's bucket list of pieces she wants to play. So I'll just talk about that one first. I have not played the Suite Italian, the Stravinsky Suite Italian, since I first played it, which was for my high school graduation recital from the New England Conservatory Extension Division. I was in their certificate program. So I've been just dying to play this for decades. And it is just a beautiful piece. It's based on Pulcinella, the suite. And there's a lot of humor in it. And in that way, it fits in the theme of the rest of my program, because the whole program, I think, has a lot of lightheartedness and humor.
Yeah.
But the rest of the
pieces... I guess you're right. It's in the 30s. I was thinking, because it's in his neoclassical style, but it's before he moved to America. He moved to America I think in the 40s. So
Right.
anyway.
Right. It doesn't really, honestly, it doesn't fit with the American music. Although I found an interesting connection. Dushkin, his collaborator for this arrangement, was an American violinist. But honestly, I didn't know that until
There you
about
go.
3 days ago. So anyway, but I thought that would kick off the concert with the Italian part. So, and so the rest of the program is all American music. And I
That's
just
right.
think the variety, I mean, there's just something distinctly American about each of these pieces in a different way. The Amy Beach piece is really the most European sounding, but what I love about the Romance, number one, I hadn't realized until I was reading more about her, is that she did not study composition in Europe, which at the time was quite unusual. So she really was a fully American composer, but she definitely was writing in that very romantic style. But she wrote this piece and premiered it. She wrote it for Maud Powell, who was a very famous violinist, and they premiered it at a women's music symposium.
Fantastic.
And that's why she wrote the piece. I know, so I thought that was pretty cool. But it's just a really beautiful piece. It's lovely.
Her music is wonderful. We had the chance to play her Gaelic symphony a few years back, and yeah, that was a fun challenge for the orchestra, but lots of amazing melodies. But like you say, it's interesting that she didn't study in Europe because it still has those influences. I guess her teachers must have studied, or at least modeled after kind of that style. But that's great. And then you have the most American of all American composers to close out the first half.
Yes, so the Charles Ives. That's definitely a bucket list for me to play one of his violin sonatas because they are the most beautiful pieces. But like all Ives, it veers off into craziness at times. So this one actually, it's called Children's Day at Camp Meeting, and just like the title, it pretty much depicts what happens when you get children together for camp meeting. So there's a lot of, there are hymns, and there's activities, there's marching around, and then more hymns, and then there's some chaos in the slow movement, which the rest of the beginning of the slow movement is incredibly atmospheric and very, very beautiful, just very beautiful, impressionistic and beautiful. And then we have the section called Con Sluggerocco, which that's an Ives term. So that section, which is, by the way, this piece is really for Scott. It's a tour de force. I mean, the whole piece is very, very pianistic and virtuosic, and so he is the Sluggerocco in that movement, and it's depicting the kids throwing rocks into a stream. So it literally is kind of, what we would call program music, where it's actually depicting something. But,
that's great.
So
then after intermission, say you have more about the Ives.
Just the interesting thing about the nothing quite lines up in Ives, and it's composed that way.
Right.
So there's places where, it looks very hard to read the rhythms, but it's basically making us not perfectly together. Because, like in life, it's really a slice of life. People aren't always in perfect sync. So even to the very end of the piece, it's a little, it's a little chaotic. So. Yeah,
his father was a band leader, and he loved musical experiments and encouraged his son to experiment with music, and would ask him, as little Charlie Ives would play the organ in church, he'd have him play a hymn in one key with his right hand and a different key with his left hand, or exercises like that. And was definitely a believer in what you said. Nothing lines up perfectly in life or in nature, and his son certainly reflected that in his music. That's great. So you have music on the second half by another a composer, a woman composer who is becoming much better known, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years. Tell us about her, Florence Price.
So I discovered Florence Price. I feel very sad that I didn't know of her earlier, but I was listening to the radio a few months ago, and the Philadelphia Orchestra was premiering for the first time with that orchestra her piano concerto. And I just heard this piece and thought it was fabulous. It was just, I mean, it's definitely a very unique American sound to the music. And so anyway, I went and looked to see if there was anything that was for violin. And I found a fantasy, which I'm not sure is even recorded anywhere. I had to order it to be printed on demand. So part of the reason her music fell out of being known is because it wasn't being printed. And that's always, how composers, no matter how incredible they are, fall into obscurity. So I'm really, really happy that her music's coming back. But so this fantasy is very, it's virtuosic. It's got definite sort of African American spiritual sounds in one section, but it's just kind of it's I don't know, it's a little bit like gypsy in the beginning, and it's
That's
so it's
great.
very new
Yeah,
to me. Her yeah.
Orchestras are discovering her music more and more, and I guess one of her symphonies, I can't remember if it was the third or fourth symphony, like someone was buying an old house that had been abandoned, and like in some place upstairs there was a trunk with music, and they found this, like the score and music to this piece that wasn't published or anything, and that's how it's just become known in the last 10 or 15 years. It's incredibly sad and remarkable, and certainly better late than never, I guess. But I'm so happy you're performing her music, and we can't wait to hear it, and we certainly look forward to performing some of her music with the orchestra in the future. Now, the next piece is a composer whose music we played to open our 2019 season, an American composer named Mason Bates. Tell us about this piece.
Yeah, another bucket list. So I loved that piece we played with the BSO, and I've also heard other music of his. I heard the singing group Chanticleer sang an a cappella piece that depicted like satellites going to, I don't know, the Magellan Cloud or something. His music's so rhythmic and sparkly, and this piece is all of that. So it's called Ford's Farm, and it's alluding to Henry Ford. And because apparently he was a fiddle aficionado. But the piece itself is really cool. The very opening part has everything. It has clucking and braying and fiddling, and it's very, very, I don't know, it's just sparkly and it sounds improvised. It's very cool. And then it goes into a fast section, which he, in his own program notes, mentions, speeding down the road in a fast car. So I feel like it starts in the barnyard and it ends speeding down the road in a fast car. But it's got a lot of just fast and furious 16th notes and string crossings, and it goes incredibly high. It ends on the highest note of the whole recital, I think. And there's lots of pizzicato and double stops.
This was composed for Hilary Hahn, right?
Yes.
This piece?
So apparently it was, I think it was based on a symphonic piece he wrote. So he arranged it for Hilary Hahn's collection of 27 pieces, she had commissioned composers to write 27 encore pieces, which is a really wonderful resource and for us violinists to learn some new sounds.
And so then that fiddling theme kind of follows through for the last two pieces on the program. You've got music by a composer we're both familiar with, Mark O'Connor, composer and performer, and a piece by Paul Nero. Tell us about those two.
So I have been a big fan of Mark O'Connor for years. I've actually attended his string camps for 2 summers, and he was actually classically trained, but then he was a competitive fiddler when he was a teenager. Then he went on to have a career in Nashville as a studio musician and doing jazz and fiddling. And so he's a true crossover artist, and he's written a violin method, and he's really promoting American music, and as it's not tied to European music, but its own language, its own styles. So I've performed Strings and Threads with the Brevard Symphony. And this piece, though, this one is, it's very 1980s in sound. So it's a kind of a bluesy pop 80s sounding piece, which really I loved about it. So it's not a fiddly piece so much, but it's more like a gospel 80s kind of
great
vibe with a whole jazzy section. So a little bit of jazz. So.
Terrific.
I don't think many people have heard this piece.
By Paul Nero. Tell us quickly about the Paul Nero piece.
Yeah, this is silly. It's there's a lot of cheeping and yeah, it's an encore piece, but I put it onto the program itself. So back in the Joe Venuti, I think back in the 1920s, was playing this piece called Hot Canary, and I think he was just improvising it, and then there was a song that Ella Fitzgerald sang, and there's words to it, and then but Paul Nero really made it into a violin showpiece and recorded it, and then later, a few years later, this particular arrangement I'm playing was created by I think his name's Florian Zabar or something. But there's a lot of, you'll hear, it's just high cheeping and
yeah. No, it's fun. Yeah. It's going to be a great closer.
It's jazzy.
So we always like to have a little bit of a performance excerpt on these concert previews. We don't have any recordings of you performing any of these pieces. But what we do have is a video of the world premiere of a piece that you gave back in February with the orchestra. It was a piece we commissioned from composer Sunhee Newbold, who is one of the leading composers of educational music for like string orchestras all across the country and around the world play her music. And she is like this composer god to little middle school and high school string players especially. So I thought it would be, she had never written a piece for solo violin and orchestra. And so I asked her if she would, for you to play with us. And she agreed. And so she's come up with this piece called Invicta. And we have the performance that we recorded for the 5th grade concert. So let's listen to that. And then maybe you can tell us a little bit about the process after we listen to it. All right, terrific. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so this, because of the pandemic, we did not have, those are usually field trip concerts that the kids come to. We didn't have any kids in the auditorium. So we just filmed it, and the concert was broadcast out to their classrooms a couple days later. So it's a little disconcerting to play with a big finish and then have no audience applause at the
Yeah.
end. So it was great that the orchestra all chimed in with applause. But so, how was that to prepare that piece? You got it maybe 7 or 8 weeks, I guess, before we
Mhm.
performed it. And I mean, it's not terribly difficult. Obviously, it's written for a student. But did you find it to be idiomatic? And is it the type of piece that you have students that would be able to play or would like to play something like that? You think?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a real gem because it has a number of different, violin techniques, and yet it's all so beautifully written. And like you said, it's idiomatic. It falls right into the instrument. So for me, it was fun to, um, I think it's the first time I've premiered a piece, but to
Oh,
find,
neat.
a little bit of different character in each of the variations. And that's something, I'd love to work with my students on. So, because it's all
Yeah.
there in the music to be brought out. She did a beautiful job.
Yeah. Yeah. She has a knack for, just it's a gift like for a commercial composer to be able to write little hooks, melodies with catchy hooks. And she's, I think, got close to 100 compositions like this, about this length for string and some for full orchestra. And that part, the variation where you start with the triplets, the eighth note triplet, is my favorite. I can imagine little kids playing in their orchestra, getting excited
Yeah.
for that variation in particular. And we're actually going to play one of her full orchestra pieces, Soon-He's compositions, on our opening night concert in October. It's a musical trip around the world, and she wrote a piece called Egyptian Legacy. So it sounds very exotic and so forth. So that'll be fun. But I was thrilled that she got to come. She still made the trip, even though we didn't have a live audience. We felt it was important to have her here. She did a live workshop with the Brevard Symphony Youth Orchestra, where she conducted them in her music, and she did a couple of virtual classroom visits. So it was very fun week, and I think special to have her here. Plus, we got pictures with her, right? So that
Is
was
she
great.
coming back? Is she going to come back in the
Uh,
fall?
not unless she surprises me. When we commission another piece, maybe she'll come back. But so anyway, let me remind everybody when this concert is, and we'll wrap up here in just a minute. So the concert is next Saturday, which is August 14th at 7 p.m. It's at Suntree United Methodist Church, 7400 North Wickham Road, Melbourne. That's in the Suntree Vieira area. Tickets are $25. You can get them in advance. It's general admission seating. You can buy them at the door as well. BrevardSymphony.com/summer tickets, or you can call the BSO office 321-345-5052 for more information. So before we go, I want to ask you one more question. So, when you have your students with the recital, right, and they play with the pianist, we usually call that an accompanist, or maybe the kids call it an accompanist, right? But so this collaboration isn't like that at all, right? Like you said, for
No.
the Ives, he's as much equal or even maybe more so in that piece. And talk to us about that, the dynamic of violin and piano, what that collaboration is like.
Yeah, it's definitely an equal partnership. I would say in most of this program, maybe the O'Connor. Well, I don't know. That's also pretty equal. Maybe just the Hot Canary is more
Mm-hmm.
violinistic. But no, I mean, I love playing with piano, and especially playing with someone like Scott, who's such a sensitive musician. And um, it's it's been a while since I've done it, so with the pandemic and all. So it's something I'm really looking forward to doing. But just it's it's a give and take. It's like
Yeah.
um, it's not like you pre-plan. I mean, you rehearse and you get the general outline, but in the moment, you're really you're communicating, you're conversing.
Yeah.
And
Well, I can certainly attest to the fact that Scott is a great collaborator. He's one of the easiest soloists to follow. All his ideas make great musical sense, and there's a great connection with him. So you guys are going to have a great experience next week rehearsing and performing this program. I'm very excited about it. I can't thank you enough for agreeing to do it and for putting it together. And, I hope folks will come out and join us. Again, it's Saturday, August 14th, Suntree United Methodist Church, music for violin and piano, featuring the BSO's Concertmaster, Lisa Ferrigno, and pianist Scott Watkins. As you can see there in the pictures of the church, plenty of room to spread out. Masks are strongly encouraged, whether you're vaccinated or not. You can keep yourself safe, but do come out. We've had excellent attendance at the two previous concerts, and it's great, just great to be in a room together experiencing live music. So we hope everyone will join us. Sound
thank
good,
you.
Lisa?
Yes,
All
thank you.
right.
I'm very
Thank
excited.
you.
Thanks.
Great. Well, we can't wait. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Andres Roca for being our behind-the-scenes technician, making us look and sound so great. Thank you, Andres, and thank you, Diane Bishop, for facilitating with this live broadcast. We will see everyone soon. Thank you.